This is Served with me, Andy Roddick. Please hit subscribe. We drop new episodes every week. On the NIL of things, obviously Patrick McEnroe was basically going off on, I don't want to say jobs being taken, tennis roster spots being taken by international players, and that's one issue. Arkansas SEC school gets rid of the tennis program.
On Thursday.
Correct. Isner's been very outspoken about it. Patrick seemed upset about it. He went on Newsmax and talked about the internationals taking our jobs. It's an interesting thing because I say things like, okay, we wanted this free market system of payment for college athletes and for tennis players, and now we're kind of against the fallout. Like we made it a free market. We've made it acting inside of the bounds of capitalism, where if you have someone generating money and your sport's not, and by the way, I think it's bullshit. I would love Arkansas to tell us why other sports are losing more money and tennis gets cut. That's a very, very, very why?
Can I set the table on this
Please,
a little bit? So they announced at the end of the week that they were cutting the tennis program. This comes on the heels of obviously, the Division I cabinet ruled that if you're not committed to a school, you can accept prize money, but the second you commit to a school, you still can't accept prize money. There's challenges with the House rulings here in the United States with NIL and how to evaluate international students' access to NIL compared to American students. There's television rights deals. There's the way the funds are all kind of committed around to different things. But one thing we were looking at, for context, the 2025 financial report for Razorback Athletics was reported, and women's tennis and men's tennis are the least of the losers of all of the sports, right? Football is the only one. Football makes significant money, made $30 million. Men's basketball made $4 million. Then women's tennis lost $1 million. Men's tennis lost $1.2 million. Now, every other sport that's on there, men's golf, women's golf, gymnastics, volleyball, swimming, diving, soccer, softball, baseball, track and field, and then women's basketball at the very bottom, all also lost more money individually. Yeah. And women's basketball lost $6.4 million. And so if you think about it from an economic standpoint, you're like, why is this getting cut? But in background conversations, it's media, it's what is really valuable in the grand scheme of things. And just for context, that's kind of where it sits financially.
Do you think these dovetail? I'm looking right now. I just pulled this up. This is the Arkansas tennis roster, and the players are from Slovenia, France, Israel, Brisbane, Australia, Seville, Prague, Little Rock, Slovakia, Austin, Texas. So you have 2 American players on the roster. And if you're an athletic director and you say, oh man, I'm going to catch some heat. I've got their parents, their taxpayers, and whatever it is, 8 of the 10 kids are not from the United States. Do we think that might have an impact?
Maybe. I mean, I think the Olympic sports of things matters. And I know people are going to go, well, tennis is an Olympic sport. Yes, but no one's qualifying for the Olympics by making a semifinal run at the NCAA tournament. It's just not happening, right? Like you don't qualify for the Olympics through NCAA tennis. Whereas, you can still get into trials as an NCAA athlete and qualify for the Olympics. We see it every Olympics, someone from Baylor winning a gold or someone from somewhere else winning a gold in track and field or what have you. It's weird because there are parts of tennis separate from the NCAA where we go, okay, well, someone else is paying for you to exist, right? So someone else is paying the role of football, and tennis is one of the sports. Basically, it's always outside of, or for the most part, and I'm sure there are some exceptions, so save me, but for the most part, generally as a rule, football makes money, basketball might make money, and then after that, it's a struggle to make money, right? It does depend what's included in the TV deals, right? So it's not just based on the tennis program lost this, but if there's a bundle or a package, and soccer is good filler, as opposed to having to watch 6 matches on 6 courts all at the same time. College tennis is tougher to watch, right? So all of those factors matter, but it's weird. You go, okay, well, this is free markets doing its thing, right? This is capitalism without social safety nets, right? And we don't like it because it's sports, but we don't often try to cross over between, politics and tennis on the show. We normally try to, save for a snarky comment here or there. We normally try to keep it on the rails of tennis, but this is like almost impossible politically. Someone I talked to who's very passionate, has a history in college tennis and has been very outspoken about it, was basically like, well, they fucked up and Congress now has to fix it. I'm going, okay, so we're expecting this Congress under its current control to restrain capitalism at work that was a choice to allow NIL. Well, why doesn't that just apply to football and basketball? So you want to carve out the money-making sports from this conversation? Like, I don't know. The one solution that seems like it would fix some things as far as tennis and maybe other sports is an age limit, right? Is there a difference? I have no issue with someone coming here and playing tennis. Listen, if you're not good enough to beat someone from Slovenia or France or whatever, and there's 100 some odd Division I tennis programs, then maybe you're not a Division I tennis player. Okay? And I know I'm going to get pushback, blowback from a lot of people that I'm friends with for saying that. But also, like, it sucks because tennis is, like you said, it's the least biggest loser in this whole thing. So if you're applying those free market metrics and we're outperforming a lot of people that still have a job, then it's picking and choosing, right? That's not a free market at work.
Let me ask you this. You favor an age cap. How would you feel, provided legally you could pull this off, of saying, look, having foreign players is great, it enriches the team, it's a learning experience, but we can't have 8 of 10, 3 of 10.
Okay, so how do you fix that without singling out nations and where people are born? Through what I've looked at, right, and this is as much as I can listen, I'm sure there's going to be people that know a lot more about me than this. Overwhelmingly, the players that are over 23 or what you would think of as like a normal college age are international players, right? Do I think a 25-year-old should be playing college tennis? Probably not. Especially if you spent, 5 years playing challengers and other pro events to come back in, and they've had it in basketball. They had someone who was drafted by the Hornets who now is playing at Baylor. Like, it's a joke, right? So I think the age limit isn't the solution. It's a speed bump in the road of basically paying the bills for someone to come, play tennis professionally, but under the guise of education, right? Is a 26-year-old going to come back and they care about their education? If they're not in like post, if they served in the military or something like that,
100%. Like I think there can be complete exemptions, right?
Yes.
But if you graduated and you chose to go do something else that wasn't like that,
if you're asking Congress to supplement people playing sports in school, and that's your social safety net, but you're getting rid of other things in life that are critical to living as a social safety net, I don't think this can be fixed politically. So I don't see, and I've asked a million times and I've tried to get smart on this. Everyone knows the problem. Everyone's angry about the problem, right? And I don't disagree with any of it. Where are the off-ramps?
I just want to make sure our audience understands what we're, because we've kind of glossed over this for an international audience. We have a lot of international players in college tennis. What's happened recently in the last 3-4 years, there have been rulings, Supreme Court rulings, and now athletes in these revenue sports are able to be paid. So the athletic departments are saying, wait a second, we're going to divert our resources. We need $150,000 to pay for that backup tight end. Why are we funding a tennis team that's losing $1 million a year? And so there have been a lot of foreign players in college tennis for a lot of time, but it's really sharpened recently when these athletic departments now have to figure out a way to pay revenue sport athletes.
Just so we all know, to qualify for the FBS, which is the real thing that anybody cares about, right? To qualify for like the bowl championships and all that stuff. I think the school has to have a minimum of 16 sports, right? So this gets them down to 17, right? So they're just cutting whatever they can to get as much minimum out the door. But I think Robert Cox, which is their former Arkansas head coach, gave an interview recently and said, my immediate thought is we can still save the sport. It's the cheapest sport on campus. It's nothing in the grand scheme. $2.5 million for both men and women combined for an athletic program with $200 million in annual revenue. I mean, it's when you think about the grand scheme of the number.
Sorry,
but then
talk about the revenue again.
That the athletic program does $200 million in annual revenue. So he's saying, how can we not afford $2.5 million? And then to that point, you're like, all right, like, Yeah, I mean, why can't they go find a booster to just privately fund this if it's that important?
And this is gossip, so take it on face value. As I've been arguing with people I like over the last 3 days about kind of, we want everyone to be paid. College deserves to be paid. It's really hard. And then they get paid and they go, oh, no, not that way. Not like that. But to your point, I think it would take my knee-jerk reaction to Coach Cox, and I listen, I can't imagine what he's dealing with right now. That sucks. For like to go into a locker room of people that look up to you.
He retired in 2013.
No, but I'm just saying, like, even being someone who has to have an opinion about it, it sucks. That being said, we need to know what sports are included in any TV contract, because net gains and losses based on operating expenses versus people buying tickets is very different than if soccer's included in a TV deal and tennis doesn't translate as well to a TV deal as Phil, right? As Phil. And the value sometimes is there's a great night session on the ATP tour and we need something to fill 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
Right. And so taking into account where the value adds are with that sport and if tennis actually fills that void, I get to the piece of gossip. I've heard that they're trying to, through private donations, get that program back. I hope it happens. I've been accused the last couple of days when I've just been trying to kind of, someone told me I'm trying to poke holes. It's like, yeah, well, that's how you find if water's leaking. But I love college tennis. My brother played 4 years at Georgia. Like my entire upbringing, I thought I was heading right there, right? I love college tennis. Nobody in this realm or orbit wants less tennis, wants less opportunity, right? It's simply, if we vote for this thing where people get paid, you can't act shocked when capitalism happens. Like we're not like, oh my God, how could we ever have figured this out? Well, when something's profitable, and I call these universities companies now because that's basically what they are. Yeah. When something is not profitable in a company and someone else is basically paying for them to exist, it becomes risky. Once you take out once the carrot is not education, but it's paying people to be on your roster, it's a totally different playing field, right? And we can't act shocked by the consequences is my only point.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking about two things that dovetail. I mean, I think Patrick's point was much more about just how many of these roster spots are being taken by foreign players, which I would argue makes these sports that much more vulnerable to cutting. And then you're right. Now, especially in this NIL world, we're talking about these balance sheets that are way out of whack. And football and basketball are supporting sports like tennis that are losing 100x whatever small revenue they're pulling in. Let me ask you a crazy question, because one of the ironies I think in tennis, what did we just talk about in our last segment? Hodar. The irony of all this is that college tennis has never been more essential to the sport. I mean, if you look at sort of the organism of professional tennis right now, college tennis has now become the feeder system, whether it's, go down the list. It's Ben Shelton, then it's Diana Schneider. Does tennis, do the tours have some obligation here? I mean, the ATP is not going to bankroll all of college tennis, but there are funds set aside for transition tours. Do the tours not have an obligation when college tennis has played such an essential role now of minting pros? Do the tours not have some role here?
I have a million questions. I'm going to start with the point where we need a clear, like, if we're complaining about college tennis going, let's be very clear about what is the priority with having a great college tennis system, right? And education, student athlete, life's a teacher, I'm fully in. All in, couldn't be more in, right? Do we want opportunities for Americans in America when it comes to producing tennis players? Absolutely. There is no doubt, 1,000%. And I think an argument can be made that because this competition is so stiff and because there are players from other places, college tennis players have never, ever in the history of college tennis, outside of like John McEnroe, been more ready to play on tour when they are done with college or done with a year of college. Spizzirri, Zhang, Quinn, Hodar, Ben, Danielle Collin, like it just, Emma Navarro, it just keeps going and going and going. It was rare when Isner made top 10 and James would make top 10 from college. Like it was like, oh, that's cool. I mean, listen, the competition could be stiffer and it might take up, the lion's share of Americans playing Division I tennis. I don't think that anyone can argue that it is maybe the single biggest training tool, to John's point, in all of tennis right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if the goal is like, listen, let's have players ready to try to take a stab at tour after college, then the system's working. But all the other stuff, it's just, it takes each person saying what they prioritize with college. And I don't necessarily agree that from a development standpoint, that this is bad for American players. I understand that someone's going to argue that Hodar, trained in America for a year, essentially. Great. And there's, 27 Americans that got to see what that ball felt like.
Yeah.
Right. So like I could make that argument. It's just confusing. I hope there is some order at some way, shape, or form. The thing I disagree with strongly, I don't know. If you're 26, is that what college sports is for? And I think that that opinion is consistent for me across. And Mike, I'm glad you said something about like service or, military service or something else. Context matters, nuance matters in all these conversations. But listen, I guess is this the tip of the spear? Mm-hmm. Like, is the Arkansas thing and obviously the outrage that has been associated with it and the worry, I think worry is almost manifesting as outrage. Right? Like it's like, I'm worried, therefore I'm pissed.
Yeah, is this the canary in the coal mine or?
Yeah. I mean,
of the avalanche?
What do you guys think about that? Because I don't see any guardrails right now. Past the 16 sports, and you hope it slides in as, one of the lesser losers, but like, is that where this emotion is coming from? Is like, we hope this isn't the tip of the spear.
It's ominous. And again, this is a different college sports universe than 5 years ago. We should acknowledge at some level Title IX plays a role here as well. I think men's tennis is much more vulnerable than women's. But it's interesting. At some level, this kind of traces bigger themes, right? Are you a globalist? Do you believe the world is flat? And it's immigration and tariffs. This is sort of a much smaller version of that. But there also is, we always used to say, the big sports were able, football and basketball basically floated the entire athletic department, and the football team made a ton of money. The tennis team got to take a fun trip to Australia for the spring and play the sport that didn't have to charge for tickets and didn't have any media rights. And now it's kind of much more of an eat what you kill world. And it's going to be really interesting to see if Arkansas is this an outlier, or as Mike said, is this sort of the beginning of the avalanche?
In one of the like main issues that I've kind of seen, because there's like some whataboutism, right? Where it's like, okay, well the sport's paying for this part of the sport, and there are certain segments of professional tennis that pay for other segments of professional tennis. So the whataboutism happens. That's like the knee jerk, right? Like, how is this different than what might happen on tour? Well, that's an insulated tennis problem. We're dealing with tennis people about a tennis problem, and we're allowed to have our opinions. Drawing a direct line between our own tennis issues and maybe a similar scenario to NIL and NCAA, where people they're not inherently passionate about it, probably at large. Mm-hmm. You can't think that every person who's in a boardroom or has this decision coming across cares about tennis as much as we do. Like that's the difference between, a problem on tour that might be similar versus a problem in NIL.
Well, I mean, and let's get real about it too. The fact that these bigger programs get television deals and they get Netflix specials and they have their branding spread all over the place. I mean, this is a branding play for a lot of schools when they're funding these programs, right? It's marketing dollars, mm-hmm. and they're ultimately they're not trying to get more athletes to come to their school. They're trying to get the 40,000 kids that want to spend the money to go sit in the stands on a regular basis to come buy hot dogs and beers and merch, and their kids. Like, this is a sustaining thing. And football and basketball are essentially university marketing opportunities. And so it's a good sunk cost, even if it's a break-even cost with women's basketball.
I'm going to leave you guys with a question that I don't know the answer to. And maybe I'll try to get smarter on it and then report back next week. But you mentioned, is there a responsibility, JW, and I know you have to go after this question. I don't expect a fully formed answer here. Is there a responsibility from the tours to support college tennis, being it's a vehicle to, players breaking out. If you're player development here in this country, is there more value in whatever the cost associated with trying to make a player and paying for training is here? Or is there more opportunity with loading up a team with 6 people and going and I don't know. I mean, is it a team full of Americans? Is there a responsibility elsewhere with player development? Are there workarounds that haven't been thought of, right? We want American players. Well, who does that fall off? If it's part of development and you have prospects, is there a way to use that system to your advantage, especially if money is available and you're allowed to pay people?
If only the head of the USTA had a history as a successful college tennis coach, we could jump on that. Craig Tiley, we have a thought exercise for you. I still think, I got to bounce. I still think a cap on the number of foreign players might be advisable, and I think it could probably pass legal muster as well. But no, it's a really tricky set of circumstances. And again, we've talked about it a lot, but the sad irony here is that college tennis is in a really good place qualitatively as a vehicle to the pros, as an appealing landing spot for an 18-year-old, but it's really imperiled right now. And I don't see how it can, unless, it might force these programs to get really enterprising and entrepreneurial and say, listen, whether it's holding camps or having special events or doing pro-ams, the guardrails are all off on amateurism anyway, but maybe this will force college tennis programs to be a little more enterprising, because right now, I think what were Arkansas's revenues? It was literally like $3,000 of revenues.
Yes.
Against $1 million and $1 million for the women and 1.2. Yeah.
Yeah, like 2.2 or something like that.
Combined. All right, JW, get out of here. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Guys. Pleasure.
Mike, you know more about this stuff than I do, but like salary caps for non-revenue sports.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, is it as simple as, listen, if you're not making revenue, then we're not going to pay you $250,000. Is there a cap in place for non-revenue sports based on the 2 years prior? Like, what are the fixes? Because obviously, if you have to choose between, if you're Arkansas and you have to choose between paying a tennis player $200,000, and I'm making numbers up, but whatever it is, if it's $100,000, if it's whatever, or having that go towards a center who can protect your quarterback, who's going to create revenues in the tens of millions. I hate to tell tennis fans, but I know how that's going to go.
Yeah.
But is there such thing as a salary cap for non-revenue sports in NIL and NCAA?
Well, I think ultimately in conversations that I've had is it's not so much that there isn't the desire to pay these players and to pay them fairly and find alternative ways to fund the program. It is that international players can't accept NIL the same as an American-born player. And so the challenge.
And what are those differences, by the way?
I don't know, like, because it's such gray area, right?
Okay.
Everything's being ruled on currently.
It's like the Wild West.
It's like, the Wild West. Like when we hire a contractor to do graphics internationally, it's a lot harder to pay them than when we hire somebody here in the United States. And there's people putting programs together to figure out how to do that, right? And I think ultimately, once they fix that, maybe that becomes a better pathway forward. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of it just always boils down to media. Boils down to TV dollars. I really think that's the biggest thing. Yeah. And if only there was a channel where it only played tennis and they could broadcast it.
Maybe a YouTube streamer should do it.
Maybe. A good idea.
Maybe. Just let that sit for a second. Here's what disappoints me about this whole thing, right? The fix requires some sobering conversations about where tennis lies in the landscape of the overall NCAA of things. And it comes down to some version of a conversation versus revenue versus non-revenue generating sports. And whatever side you want to argue vehemently, like however you approach this conversation, and if you have a bias because you've participated or it's a big part of your life, those are the facts that are unavoidable for a solution, right? And also, it's just, for me, it's disheartening because college tennis, in my opinion, outside looking in, I didn't play college tennis. I saw it. I watched it. I was around it nonstop growing up. My brother played 4 years at Georgia all the time. It's never been a better product. It has simply never been a higher quality of tennis to where, as a fan, if you get a chance to go to these matches, go. The number one player on a team that's top 5 in the country, sure as shit, like, they're going to be in a major in the next 18 months. Maybe it's Hodar. You know, maybe it's Spizzirri who almost beat Sinner after you pay $3 to watch them at some tournament. So while it's here and before the tip of the spear and with so many question marks around what's going to happen with the NIL of things and where tennis fits into it, simply, if you're a tennis fan, you have a good program, you have any program, go watch these players, support them how and where, even a little bit. The product has never, ever, ever been better.
Yeah. I think that's the result, right? You're just going to have to, if you want to support these things and you want them to exist, you have to go support them.
Yeah. I mean,
Right?
there's
that's
every
the way-
chance
that's
you're
the
going
way
to
it
see Ben Shelton and you're going to see him in 3 semis of slams. And Danielle Collins makes the finals of Australia, you know, out of college. Emma Navarro shoots to 8 in the world. Spizzirri almost beats. Zhang wins. Ethan Quinn's winning all the time.
Yeah.
You're going to watch future pros with more of a guarantee than I think has ever existed in the history of college tennis. So I hope there is a path. I don't know what it is. It's difficult. When it's relying, like people are like, fix college tennis. I'm like, well, the Supreme Court, that's stuff. So I don't know what tennis willpower can do, but hopefully it can do something, Mike.